All right, hello, welcome. I'm Mike Day, Dealer Service Representative here at AGWS. Welcome to our September AGWSU F&I Insights webinar. Today, Bob Harkins, our VP of Training, will be discussing the Agent Summit 2021 highlights, the pandemic, digital retail, and the changing F&I process, and then your F&I profitability focus. If you have any questions or comments, please type them in the panel on the right, and we'll try to address them as they come in. For follow-up questions, you can email those to bharkins@agws.com. And then if you tuned into the previous ones, here's the schedule of what we have up on the website. Make sure to go to agwsu/webinars. And then with that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Thank you very much, Mike Day. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to F&I Insights, September 2021 issue. Mike, can you believe it? This is our 25th webinar in our series that began in 2019, and just wanted to take a quick minute to thank many of you that focus in and tune us in on a regular basis and contact us for the slide presentations and actually set up some training that we do either in store or on a virtual basis based upon the needs and situations of your agent partners and your dealer clients. So we're looking for that to continue through the balance of 2021 and also into 2022, depending upon COVID restrictions and things of that nature. Just a quick word with respect to the webinar series flyer, and as you talk about training activities and accomplishing goals and objectives in your store, if you review that and just play any of these webinars that look appropriate to you based upon your need and situation, again, as Mike said, just go to agwsu.com/webinars. And if you want to discuss that, if you want the slides for any of these webinars, just contact me. I will contact marketing, and Annie Zito will provide you with that information. So our goal, as always, is to provide you with this series, both F&I and compliance training to help yourselves as agent partners and our respective dealer clients to maximize deal profit. And deal profit, of course, is both front-end growth and finance and insurance income, but as always, to do it the right way, and the right way is in a manner that's consistent with good customer relations and sound business practices. So today we're going to start out with Agent Summit highlights. We're going to get into the pandemic, digital retail, and the changing F&I process. Information there from Stone Eagle and Joe St. John. I think that you'll have enjoy hearing some of those numbers that he's going to share with us, and then also talk about, last but certainly not least, your F&I profitability focus. Next slide, Mike, if you would. Okay, Agent Summit 2021 highlights. Let me share with you that we're just back from Agent Summit 10. Can't believe that there's been 10 of these already, but just completed was Agent Summit 10, and that was from August 29th through September 1st. I've been very blessed to be the MC moderator for all of these Agent Summit conferences or conventions. As you may know, they're sponsored and brought to us, the industry, by Bobbit, B-O-B-I-T, that's Bobbit Business Media, and also Agent Entrepreneur Magazine. So if you're one of our many agent partners, you probably subscribe to Agent Entrepreneur Magazine. So two names that you're probably familiar with that are really responsible for Agent Summit and many of the things that appear in Agent Entrepreneur Magazine would be David Gesualdo and also Kate Spadafora. David Gesualdo and Kate Spadafora. I'll tell you just a little bit about this conference that we just completed. You know, among the 10 or the 9 that were done previously, we've had a couple that we were right at 1,000 that actually attended the conference and the exhibit hall information and the various social activities that were provided. This year, Bellagio, Las Vegas, you know, we were still into mask mandates and other requirements and things of that nature. And prior to this conference, we'd heard that a number of people just canceled for the obvious reasons, and that the numbers were going to be significantly lower. But I'll tell you, when the dust settled and everybody came back and showed up, and a number of people actually made it to the conference, said previously that they probably weren't going to be there. But we ended with 512 attendees. 512 attendees. That's people that actually signed in at the Bellagio for that conference in person. So yeah, it's not 800, 900, or 1,000, but still it's 500 attendees. Yeah, now it's to you. that the next year's Agent Summit, for those of you that attend these kind of things, I think it will be offered virtually as well. But Agent Summit 11 will be in May next year, May 15th to 18th, and it will be again in Las Vegas, but this time at the at Caesar's Palace. So those of you that are not familiar with Agent Summit and what it does, specifically, I would say to you that Agent Summit is designed for general agents, designed for product providers, those who provide products and services to dealers, and also I would throw in another group there, and that's people that are interested in and certainly would be classified as the reinsurance experts. So Agent Summit really is specifically for general agents, product providers, and reinsurance experts as well. So really, it's for anybody that really works with and serves the dealer community. It's and when I say dealers, I'm referring to RV, marine, power sports, commercial trucking, and autos. So anyone that's organized and working with the dealer community, certainly Agent Summit will be a good venue for you with respect to that. Staying with the comments and the people that actually talked at Agent Summit. Familiar names, and again, I had the opportunity to introduce all of these people throughout the summit. Number one is Paul Mitri. Paul Mitri was a keynote speaker on the second day. Paul, of course, with NADA, the National Automobile Dealers Association. He's their VP of Regulatory Affairs and Chief Counsel for Financial Services. He spoke on Tuesday and just talked about the responsibilities that we have in the F&I office and just making sure that things are done correctly in that deal. Specifically, the exact title was confronting challenges in the F&I office. Confronting challenges in the F&I office. Paul, we've talked about before in previous webinars. You might remember that he is he's the author of the NADA Fair Credit Compliance Policy and Program, the 18-page booklet binder, if you will, that was produced in 2014. That's the one where you set a standard dealer participation rate above the buy rate and charge that 1 or 2% or whatever it is above the buy rate for each and every customer. Allows you 7 allowable reasons to come down from a competitive standpoint to retain or hold the business. And the great news with that program is that all 7 of those electives that you can choose from to drop that rate have all been approved by the DOJ, by the Department of Justice. Then in 2019, Paul penned the NADA Model Leadership Policy for Voluntary Protection Products, where they recommend that you set a standard retail price for every product or every product bundle. And then if you come downward on that price, you never go up. There's 5 allowable reasons that you record that you dropped from that standard retail price to attain the business. The purpose of this, of course, is if you're ever challenged, state, federal, or these days even some kind of local regulatory agency, a consumer group, whatever, faithfully implementing these programs will do a couple of things for you. It provides you, the first one, with a statistically verifiable and legally defensible basis for the quoted APR, very important these days with disparate impact and what the CFPB and the FTC have announced that they're looking for under the Biden-Harris administration. And the second one, providing you with a statistically verifiable and legally defensible basis for the product pricing. So again, the emphasis this year, CFPB and FTC, will be on optional voluntary protection products, how they're priced, presented, and sold. So just remember the acronym PPS, optional voluntary protection products. The concern is how are they priced, how are they presented, and how are they being sold. When Paul talked to the group, he talked about the fact that NADA represents the 16,000 or 17,000 plus new car dealerships in America, and dealers that are the dealer principals with respect to that. Paul, his committee, other committees regularly are doing workshops and making presentations. Examples of that might be congressional committees. It could be state dealership associations. It could be regulatory agencies, consumer groups that attack not only our industry, but specifically our products as it relates to finance reserve, now dealer participation, and also products from a standpoint of cost and value. So, one of the things that really Paul talked about was the fact that, words really do matter. Words really do matter when you're involved in litigation or discussion, or in some respects defending what we're doing as an organization and a dealership respect to our product presentations. So a couple of recommendations that he made to the group that day, and that is because words matter, the recommendation is when it comes to finance reserve, which is a term that we've used for decades, the recommendation from NADA's Paul Mitri is to eliminate the words finance reserve, eliminate the words markup or dealer markup, eliminate the words rate spread, eliminate the words dealer profit, and all those things that have those kinds of sounds or names attached to that. And instead of any of those examples, the NADA recommendation for Paul Mitri is to use the two words dealer participation. Dealer participation. And remember, all of the retail installment sale contracts, they say down at the bottom that the dealer may assign this contract and retain its right to receive a part of the finance charge. So dealer participation is the term to use instead of finance reserve, markup, rate spread, dealer profit. And he talked about the fact that in these meetings, whether it's a congressional committee, state dealer association, regulatory agencies, or consumer groups, we think that we have a much better chance of explaining and defending these products when we use a term like dealer participation, as opposed to the other terms that have been rampant in our industry since we've been able to have this thing of finance reserve, now dealer participation. Then the second thing is just as important, he said, when it comes to utilization and words matter, when it comes to products. And it's hard to break old habits. Trust me, as you get older, you certainly will realize that. But he says, look, let's eliminate terms like add-ons when it comes to products that we're selling. Let's eliminate terms like ancillaries. Let's eliminate terms like back-end products. Let's eliminate terms like F&I products. So again, eliminate F&I products, back-end products, ancillaries, and add-ons from our vocabularies, and the NADA recommendation as to what we should refer to these things as. And we've already done this, really, quite frankly, although not to this degree of Paul putting the exclamation point on this request that can help our industry, but refer to these products always with the four words of optional voluntary protection products. Optional voluntary protection products. Optional voluntary protection products. So again, some things from Paul Mitri with respect to that, and he tied that into what the CFPB and FTC is up to, and we'll talk about that next with information from Terry O'Loughlin. Terry O'Loughlin, you know that name because of his writings for F&I and Showroom, for Agent Entrepreneur, also Reynolds and Reynolds handouts as well. Terry, of course, is the Director of Compliance for Reynolds. He's been in that capacity since 2006. Prior to joining Reynolds and Reynolds as their Director of Compliance, he was with the state of Florida Attorney General's office, Florida AG's office. He worked as obviously an attorney, investigator, and had a team of people whose responsibility was to investigate and prosecute dealers, manufacturers, financing companies, and leasing companies as well. So Terry O'Loughlin tag teamed a presentation, a keynote with Gil Vanover. Gil Vanover, you may know Gil, of course, from the book that we talk about in class a lot, and also in our webinars. Gil penned in 2018, Automotive Compliance in a Digital World. Automotive Compliance in a Digital World. In addition to that, Gil is also from an ACE standpoint, he's director of ACE. ACE is Automotive Compliance Education. ACE conducted training, compliance ethics training at the conference. I believe they certified about 40 people with respect to up-to-date compliance with the ACE program, Automotive Compliance Education. You may also know Gil Vanover, primarily dating back to 2001 as the principal of his company, which is GVO3 and Associates. GVO3 and Associates. GVO3 and Associates, they provide auditing, training, litigation support, and other services for dealers, finance sources, finance companies, many people that are involved in our business as it relates to retail financing and product providing. And one of the things that they do a great job of, I know, is in their litigation support, depending upon who they've audited business for a particular dealer or dealer group. I guess to sum it up, when Gil and Terry were talking, they were talking about the fact, in fact, that the title of their presentation was really F&I for non-F&I managers. F&I for non-F&I managers. And the talking point there was, it's because of digital retailing and things that we're doing related to the pandemic and changing to how we're presenting not just our products and service, but selling cars. You know, we're over the internet, we're in person, we're on the phone, whatever. And many times you have different people in different roles doing different parts of presentations that maybe they would not have done prior to the pandemic or prior to COVID. So really, the three things that they talked about was really from a major focus standpoint. Terry and Gil referred to it as the three major foci. I love that term. The three major foci of the CFPB. That would be the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and also the Federal Trade Commission as well. In other words, what are they looking at? Where are they going to enforce? And just what should we be aware of in our industry? So three things. Number one is fair lending and dealer participation. So usually we would say, I've said before now, fair lending and finance reserve, but now let's talk about that in terms of dealer participation with respect to the NADA recommendation. So number one, fair lending and dealer participation. So again, if you're looking for a statistically verifiable and legally defensible basis for the quoted APR, that NADA Fair Credit Compliance Policy and Program was certainly recommended and endorsed by both Terry O'Loughlin and Gil Vanover. Number two of the three things, the major foci of the CFPB and the FTC, number two is optional voluntary protection products. Optional voluntary protection products. And their thought is that the CFPB, FTC, whatever, along with the Department of Justice, will attack the pricing of F&I products and services, just as they did the pricings of rate administration back in 2012 and 13 and 14, and really up through 2016, when you had the various finance sources were hit with a charge of engaging in an ongoing nationwide pattern or practice of discrimination, and that they were charging African Americans, Asian Americans, and Hispanics higher APRs than white customers with similar credit profiles. This is already happening with litigation and things going on in our industry with respect to product sales. So optional voluntary protection products, and the message from both Gil and Terry was hey, the PPS, how are these products being priced? How are they being presented? And how are they being sold? So when it comes to presented, if you go to the NADA Model Leadership Policy for Voluntary Protection Products, pull out page 16 of that program, and there you will see the NADA recommendation of how products should be presented using a standard, simple menu format, and that's what we really endorse as a company from a training standpoint here at the American Guardian group of companies. Then the third thing that Gil and Terry mentioned that the CFPB and the FTC will be forging into, and they've done it already. Are ready for this? Number three is the abolition, meaning abolishment, the abolition of arbitration for consumer disputes. The abolition of arbitration for consumer disputes. And then, of course, Terry again reiterated what we've talked about before in some of our meetings, what we talk about in our leadership training, coaching, and development, and compliance and ethics workshops that we do in stores, is what Terry and Gil, and for that matter, even Dave Robertson, Executive Director and President of AFIP, referred to as the Big Six, meaning, when it comes to compliance and ethics, who should we respect / fear the most? And in order of importance, the list was still the same from Terry. Number one, who we should fear and respect the most. Number one would be the finance source or finance sources that buy your paper. And the reason is, among other things, is they are directly under the umbrella of the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And number two, fear or respect the most would be the Attorney General in your state. the Attorney General in your state or the top law enforcement officer in your state, so be alert to what they're up to. And what I like to do in going into the workshops in advance, depending upon the state, is really pull up the website, the web pages for the Attorney General of that state, and look at what's on their program there as far as keynote information on customer complaints and brochures and handouts that they provide as it relates to our industry, whether it be pricing of the vehicle, used car rules, or getting into rate administration and product violations from an unfair and deceptive act and practices standpoint as well. So number one, the finance sources that buy our paper. Number two, the Attorney General from your state. Number three, the Federal Trade Commission. Every dealer who has a service facility and does not hold their own paper, in other words, you sell your paper to a non-affiliated third-party finance source, you're directly under the umbrella of the Federal Trade Commission. On the other hand, if you're a dealer and you do not have a service facility and you also hold your own paper, buy your paper program, whatever, you are not directly under the umbrella of the FTC, you are directly under the umbrella of the CFPB. So I know it's like alphabet soup, but that's some important distinctions to make depending upon service facility and whether or not you have a buy here, pay here operation as well. And then Terry also reiterated what he said before at previous workshops and previous summits, and that is the UDAP stands for Unfair and Deceptive Acts and Practices, and talks about the fact that the FTC has UDAP provisions. The state, meaning the Attorney General, would be responsible for enforcing the UDAP provisions within the state. And then when the CFPB came along in 2011, as I like to say, they bought a vowel, and they now spell and have spelled UDAP with another A. They refer to it as UDAAP. I call it UDAAP, and that first A stands for abusive. Abusive means to misuse, use wrongly, or mistreat customers. So the UDAP test or standard of enforcement for Terry O'Loughlin very simply is the answer to this question. In the things that we do with respect to, especially in F&I, with our rate administration, with the sale of our optional voluntary protection products, et cetera, does the activity or practice, and here it is, the key question, does the UDAP test or standard of enforcement, does the activity or practice, does your activity or practice have the tendency or capacity to mislead a consumer? And ladies and gentlemen, again, the key word there is mislead. Does your activity or practice have the tendency or capacity to mislead a consumer? If that answer is overwhelmingly yes, what they're saying is it's only a matter of time until you have an issue with respect to an Attorney General, the FTC, potentially the CFPB, even all the way up to the Department of Justice. So a lot of great information it was from Terry O'Loughlin and Gil Vanover. The next gentleman's name is Jim Polly. Jim Polly spoke to the group. He's the president of a company by the name of Spectrum Automotive Holdings. Many of the agents talked with him during and after and into the exhibit hall area. Jim Polly's company, their specialty is working with dealers, or with agencies, excuse me, not dealers, but working with agents and providing them with insights and opportunities and things to consider if they're considering selling their agency anytime in the near future. So Jim Polly's presentation from Spectrum Automotive Holdings was excellent. Mosaic Compliance Services, Tyler Raquette. Tyler works with Jim Ganther at Mosaic did a great job with respect to dealership data security. So again, if you need any information with respect to any of these keynote presentations, you can go directly to Kate Spadafora with Bobbitt, or contact David Gesualdo and provide you with the taping and information that you would need for any of these presentations. And last but certainly not least, this is the third time that I recall that the two attorneys, David Marcus and Matt Bartle, spoke to the group. And they were really very topical and right on the topic of their presentation a lot of interaction with this during their workshop, and also I noticed afterwards as well. They called it competitive insurgency. Competitive insurgency, and what they were talking about were the product providers and our programs and the problems and things that we're facing with respect to OEM regulations, OEM mandates, as they would like to say. F&I Sentinel issues was a big topic of discussion, and they did a great job in their presentation. So these are just a few of the Agent Summit 2021 highlights. Again, Paul Mitri from Native, Terry and Gil from Reynolds and Automotive Compliance Education, Jim Polly from Spectrum, Tyler with Mosaic, great presentation on data security. And then if you're interested in information on competitive insurgency, the presentation by the two attorneys, Matt Bartle and David Marcus, would be excellent. I will share with you in a workshop by the end of the year. Our guest will be with me, and that will be Gil Vanover from ACE, talking about automotive compliance education and dealership audits and things of that nature as well. Next slide. All right, the pandemic, digital retail, and the changing F&I process. Some of you know and have heard him speak or things that he's written or penned. He does an excellent job. And that's now my good friend, Joe St. John. Joe is with Stone Eagle, of course. He's their senior VP for business development. And he's specifically involved with Stone Eagle metrics and the numbers and things that they do with respect to their dealer partners. I will tell you, when he talked to the group from a keynote presentation, it was really right on. But Stone Eagle now is up to 6,000 dealers, 6,000 new dealers that they provide metrics to. Information, numbers, whatever, with respects to the trends and numbers and goals and accomplishments, I can't say the word, accomplishments, whatever, as it relates to new car, light truck sales, but also your F&I products and services as well. That's 6,000 plus dealers, but they also deal with over 15,000 dealers with respect to their software solutions and reporting. And the key thing that you talked about there is that the fact that we're in kind of a new normal these days, with the pandemic and digital retail, that now more than ever before, we want to know earlier on in the month, like daily or several times a day, exactly where we're at from an F&I standpoint as it relates to profitability. So what Joe talked about specifically with respect to this is that the pandemic has really ushered in a new normal that puts F&I in a state of flux, and that state of flux is a continual change. And what he talked about in that state of flux and the new normal and performance management, really emerging trends that gets into F&I sales trends as well, is really 5 key areas. And number one, the fact that the point of sale is now more fluid than ever. It's changing rapidly, and if you have 5 deals a day, that state of this sale, the point of sale, when you begin the F&I presentation, how you do your disclosure may be different, and really from a timing standpoint, in all 5 of these opportunities. So the point of sale is more fluid now than ever before. That's why we presented to you, and we knew this was happening. Really, our focus and our webinar several months back with my good friend Ed Stewart on being audible ready as it relates to your F&I products and presentations. So number one is to realize that we're in a state of flux due to the pandemic, due to digital retail. And the first area of concern is the fact that point of sale is now more fluid than ever. And we got to be audible ready as it relates to our dealings with our customer and be able to present our product, our services, our presentation, and not how maybe we've always wanted to do it before, but now what the customer respects from a standpoint of buying process. Number two, and I know you've seen this in your stores, but any kind of digital retail emphasis, certainly with pandemic, that typically F&I considerations, F&I discussions with customers, presentations, considerations, whatever, have moved further upstream in the F&I process. So you may be talking about F&I really early in the discussion with the customer, as opposed to after the customer, prior pandemic, in most of our F&I technique steps to the sale was obviously presenting the products and services after they bought the vehicle. We checked the figures for accuracy. We got something signed. We reviewed the credit application. We did our base statement, our dealership value statement, and then we introduced the menu. Well, now you may be introducing that menu very, very early in the presentation. So F&I considerations, because presentations have moved further upstream in the buying process. Because of that, Joe spent a lot of time talking about job changes and opportunities in our industry. And one of the industry involves for the people that are really qualified and are able to handle this is the cross training of certain people to be able to handle the front end, the sale of the vehicle, the allowance for the trade, then also turning their attention to the F&I job description as well. So job changes and cross training, and that involves, and I think maybe adjusting behavior as it relates to our ability to be able to do that. You know, a couple of public companies have attacked this, really going on 3 years now, I think, for one of the two, and that is they've eliminated the F&I position, the F&I manager position, and they've replaced that with a term, one in particular refers to the manager as a VOM, V as in Victor, OM, and VOM stands for variable operations managers. So what they have is really a product specialist that presents the vehicle, the review the Monroney, reviews the supplemental sticker, whatever you have with respect to the deal, will handle the feature benefit to receipt presentation, do the demonstration, ride or drive, whatever. But then when it gets to numbers, different from the MSRP on the Monroney label, which the product specialist would have gone over, but when it gets into actual numbers, allowances for trade, F&I product presentations, whatever, and menu presentation of optional voluntary protection products, they now turn that customer, and it's just one turn, to the variable operations manager, the VOM. The VOM handles the figures on the deal from a front-end standpoint, handles the allowance on the trade standpoint, and then turns his or her attention to the presentation of F&I and presenting optional voluntary protection products. So it's an interesting concept that I've run into with a lot of our number of our agent partners and dealer clients, and not even the larger ones. I don't know that size really matters. What really does matter is, do I have the right person that's able and capable of pulling this off? And the people that I've talked with, the people that Joe St. John referred to in his presentation was from a standpoint, if we're able to do this properly, okay, the CSI numbers are higher, customer is involved in the presentation process much more positively. It's less combative than it was before, because think about, again, numbers 4 and 5 of these five ways, these 5 areas. Number 4, the customer now shows up at the dealership, and because of what we've done online or by phone or even at their place of business or at home, they show up to the dealership, and the sale and financing of the vehicle is nearly complete. So they're met by the person that they talk with by phone. May not be the salesperson, but an optimum approach would be to be met by that VOM, by that variable operations manager. So now, rather than 2, 3, 4 hours, as it is before, prior to the pandemic, prior to digital retail emphasis, instead of not getting into F&I until 2.5, 3 hours later, sometimes longer, we're now into cementing and presenting the F&I presentation in as early as maybe 10, 15, or 20 minutes. So that's kind of a new normal in the deal. And I would remind you again, in previous workshops that we've talked about from a JD Power standpoint, the one in particular on how many minutes it takes in their survey to sell and deliver a new car and get the customer through the F&I process, and the number that they presented as a result of their data was 187 minutes. So, and I'm not real good at math, but that's just north of 3 hours, 187 minutes prior to pandemic, prior to digital retail, that it took the customer in the store on average to get through the sales process of a new vehicle and then into finance and insurance. But the real kicker of that 187 minutes was really the next two numbers. And that is, on average, the customer had to wait 32 minutes before they ever got into F&I. They had to wait 32 minutes before they ever got into F&I. So once they got into F&I, what were they thinking? What was their attitude? And think about what's yet to come potentially as it relates to negative or lower CSI numbers. And then the average time spent on making the F&I presentation was 41 minutes. So now with digital retail, the right people, if we're breaking this up, a number of it's done by phone, by email, by fax, whatever. Now they're coming in person, and we're well along in that process as it relates to presenting and getting the customer's approval or objection handling opportunity as it relates to our optional voluntary protection products. So again, number of things happening with that as it relates to these numbers and sales or selling trends. One of the things I thought was very interesting before we move on is Joe talked about what we call PSPRS, product sold per retail sale. And this, again, he's tying it into their Stone Eagle membership. And they went back to 2019 and talked about for 2019, the average PSPRS, product sold per retail sale, was 1.23. Through November of 2020, or now rather, I'm going to say in 2021, through their recent metrics, that number is now 1.49 PSPRS. Make sure I get my numbers right. Was 1.23. Now at the average is 1.49 products sold per retail sale. So how does that work? Products sold per retail sale. If you have 5 retail sales, among those 5 retail sales, you sold 10 products. 10 divided by 5, your PSPRS would be 2. Another example, you have 5 retail sales, 5 vehicles sold. You sold a total of 5 products. 5 divided by 5 would be 1. Your PSPRS would be 1. But then he talked about the fact that from a Stone Eagle standpoint of the top 20% of the stores that they work with on the metrics and supporting with software and reports, the top 20% of Stone Eagle's membership, their PSPRS is 1.99, just under 2, 1.99, and their dollar per retail unit is 23.41 of the top 20%. 1.99 PSPRS, product sold per retail sale, and 23.41 dollar per car or dollar per retail. So that's their current numbers. I will tell you, some of our stores that are still heavy on leasing, and we'll get back to it when they have vehicles to sell, whatever, but heavy on the leasing side, what we recommend, and a lot of stores are doing that, instead of calling it PSPRS, they might still have that number for retail deals, but on leasing, they call it PSPCL, meaning products sold per consumer lease. PSPCL, products sold per consumer lease, because you got probably a little bit different offerings that you're offering to the lease customer. So nonetheless, PSPRS, PS per consumer lease numbers, and the idea is to get earlier involved from a management standpoint and know where we are from an F&I standpoint daily or several times per day, as opposed to the end of the month when it's too late to correct those kind of things. So I will share with you that we have a commitment from Joe St. John to join us on a subsequent F&I Insights webinar. And I know you'll enjoy that, and we'll have that well introduced and advertised for you in advance so that you can be with me and Joe as he gets more deeply involved in this information of digital retail and offerings that are available as it relates to report and solutions, and what that does to the bottom line. Next slide, Michael. All right, quickly, let's talk about finance and insurance, the 5 primary objectives that really relate to what you do every day, your job description and duty roster. 5 primary objectives. Number 1, of course, is C&E, compliance and ethics and the protection of the dealer and the dealership. Still, the number 1 hot button topic in our industry is just that: compliance and ethics, F&I and the law, selling with integrity, and the need now really for every dealership in America, RV, marine, power sports, commercial trucking, and auto, to develop an in-house, effective, and ongoing compliance and ethics program, now commonly referred to as a CMS or compliance management system. Remember, we've talked about a CMS before. It's a formal written program that's built into every phase or stage of your operation, from advertising to sales to F&I to back-end processes. It really involves 4 interconnected steps. Number 1, and most important, is executive oversight, dealer commitment, management support, executive oversight. If management support and dealer is in support of this, everybody else will follow in line as well. So also with that executive oversight is the requirement of the appointment of a compliance officer as well. Number 2 of the 4 interconnected steps is the writing of your written compliance programs. That would be, easy examples would be for red flags, safeguards rule, and disposal rule, but also your programs as it relates to what's your mantra as far as the steps to a sale and finance and insurance, and also presenting your automobile sales as well. So written compliance programs is really the nuts and bolts of your CMS. 3 and 4, the last 2, is to have a written compliance program with that, and part of that is number 3, the complaint resolution portion, or complaint resolution program, which is designed to do several things. To number 1, log, to number 2, track, to number 3, investigate, to number 4, resolve complaints before they get up the ladder and become complaints with respect to regulatory agencies and consumer groups. So complaint resolution program. And then last but not least, at least annually, is to conduct an independent compliance audit, in addition to what you're doing in your store with various managers conducting the audit as well. So 5 primary objectives: C&E and the protection of the dealer and the dealership, secure the sale of the vehicle, protect the front end gross, maximize deal profit, meaning that means both front end gross and finance and insurance income. And maybe that starts with just a written paragraph or what your goal is as far as how to maximize deal profit without using specific numbers. So we'll have this slide available for you, but I use this many times in stores to help a dealer develop this for their written program. That is the basic F&I goal or sales objective, which is very simply 100% solicitation. 100% solicitation of every retail and lease customer by a professionally trained financial services manager whose objective is to develop and maintain maximum potential finance and insurance and lease income in a manner that's consistent with good customer relations and sound business practices. That might be something pretty good to have in print the next time a regulator comes calling and asks you what your goals are in F&I. So rather than say, I want to run $2,500 a car, maybe you come back and say something like that. Low key, downstream, non-confrontational, 100% solicitation of every retail and lease customer by a professionally trained individual whose objective is to develop and maintain maximum potential finance and insurance and lease income in a manner that's consistent with good customer relations and sound business practices. So maximize deal profit. And then last but not least, number 6 is to maintain and enhance our CSI scores on a positive basis. Next slide, Mike. Focus on profit opportunity. Our focus might need changing depending upon our store. Think or reflect about your organization, mega dealer group or one store or whatever. But instead of saying or thinking the way that many of us in the industry have thought for years or decades, whatever, instead of saying, we have all these products, part of our new amount of arrows in our quiver, the optional voluntary protection products, instead of saying or thinking, we have all these products, how can I sell them to my customers? Maybe a new or different way of thinking ought to be something more like this. We have all these customers. We have all these customers. How can my products help them? We have all these customers. How can my products help them? And if we realize that certainly might help us with our F&I technique, our steps to the sale, and our commitment to being audible ready as well. Next slide, Mike. We talked about our ability to get information previously from a native focus group, and we talked about to be clear and sharp on the top 4 things customers want based on focus group data. I think this would be a quick review because I think this is pertinent, it's very timely. At the same point, it's also timeless as well. So what are the top 4 things that customers want based upon focus group data of a particular new car product line manufacturer? Number 1, the number 1 answer, they want it quick and efficient. And these were things that they checked off. These things were already written out for them. options that they could choose from. And what I'm sharing with you are the top 4. Number 1 of 4, a quick and efficient sales and F&I process that is both professional and transparent. Transparent meaning things are clearly seen and easily understood. So is your process professional and transparent? Number 2 is kind of interesting. And that is talk with someone and catch this phrase. Talk with someone, preferably one person. Talk with someone, preferably one person, who can help them, meaning the customer, get the vehicle they want at a price and payment they can afford. So if you read into that, perhaps, preferably one person is why perhaps a lot of stores are now considering more than ever before that variable operations manager opportunity instead of, or in addition to, in some respect, the F&I process that they've done for years. Next slide, Mike. Number 3, going to be clear and sharp in the top 4 things. Number 3 is a beneficial F&I experience that expedites the delivery process, not prolongs it. We're trying to expedite the delivery process, not prolong it. So you think about that from a standpoint of time. Customers sitting in the waiting room or lounge area, they're seeing you in the office and nobody is there. And then, what are you doing? Why am I waiting? You're finally called in, and basically what you were probably doing is preparing that magic menu to present to the customer. Well, now why don't we bring the customer in, start this process, and get into the magic menu process, because there's nothing magic about it, but talk with the customer and develop and customize that menu based upon their needs and situation. So once again, number 3, a beneficial F&I experience that expedites the delivery process, not prolongs it. Finally, number 4, an F&I professional that adds value. Value is what? Relative worth, utility, or importance. The definition of value. An F&I professional who adds value, relative worth, utility, or importance to the purchase experience, not aggravation. Next slide, Mike. I think that starts with a pledge, individually and collectively as a group, and it starts at the top with this executive oversight, and that is to conduct business the right way. And we'll talk about what right stands for in the next slide, but 4 questions. 2 sets of 4 questions that are typically on the mind of every customer. Out front, when it comes to product sales, we need to be able to address this. Why your product? Why your dealership? Why buy now? And last but certainly not least, and maybe most important, is why buy me? Why buy me as a professional sales consultant? So front-end sales, why your product? Why your dealership? Why buy now? And why buy me as a professional sales consultant? And then the last 4 questions, or the second set of 4 at the bottom, relating to the finance and insurance side of the business. These are questions that they'll probably never ask you outwardly, but the 4 key questions that are on the mind, I would say, of almost every customer, if not every customer, that they're asking themselves about you as you begin this process of finance and insurance. And what are these 4 questions? Number 1, can I trust you? Can I trust you? Number 2, are you credible? Number 3, do you care? I mean, do you really care about my needs, my situations? Now, if we've done a value statement prior to this, we always talk to the customer about, again, the most important reason why did we develop this program with our finance sources, quite frankly, folks, is because we care. We do things a bit differently here at Harkins Honda. See, we care not just about your business today. Obviously, that's very important to us, but folks, really, we care about gaining your respect and earning your repeat and referral business for the future as well. So something like that, your words, not my words, and talk to the customer about the fact that you really do care, not just about their business today, but gaining their respect, earning their repeat and referral business for the future. And last but not least, and maybe the most important one, they're all important, what are they thinking? Is this guy, is this lady, are they really trying to help me? Are they truly trying to help me, or are they just trying to sell me something? So think about it. Is your F&I process, what are people thinking? Can I trust you? Are you credible? Do you care? And you're really trying to help me, or just trying to sell me something? Michael, next slide, sir. Again, to pledge to conduct business the right way with a verbalizing of a dealership value statement. And as we verbalize that, that should be prior to the menu presentation. So RHITT stands for the 5 principles of how our commitment to how we conduct business. 5 principles. Number 1 is respect. Number 2 is honesty. Number 3 is integrity. Number 4 is transparency. Again, from a financial standpoint, our goal is to make sure everything that we do is for you is the ability to make sure that it's clearly seen and easily understood. And then last but not least is trust. So I know a number of stores, I mean, just because of looking for ways to shorten the presentation, and little differences make the big difference. So if you don't want the time to do all 5 of these things, although I think all 5 of these are great, and one major public company, this is a mandate that F&I has to use with every customer in their verbal presentation. But if you want to shorten it, I would just use numbers 2, 3, and 4, and remember it by presenting to the customer the HIT principle. Everything that we do here at Harkins Honda is based upon three primary objectives as to our commitment on how we do business. Number 1 is honesty. Number 2 is integrity. And folks, number 3 is transparency. Our goal is to make sure when it comes to financial matters for all of our clients here at our dealership, that things are clearly seen and easily understood. So it's our pledge to conduct business the right way. Respect, honesty, integrity, transparency, and trust. Next, Michael. This next slide is a lot of discussion we have in a number of stores when we get into the F&I presentation of presenting products and services and utilizing impact benefit statements, impact benefit questions. But I now call it eliminate or implement, not eliminate, but implement the F&I four-way stop sales process. You can have some fun having discussions with this in your stores. Number 1 recommendation is stop the fake chit chat. Stop the fake chit chat and just get down to business. I mean, I don't know what that fake chit chat might be, but you know what it is. The customer sure knows that it's fake, and they can pinpoint it. So why do it? Stop the fake chit chat. Number 2, I would say to you, stop the phony surveys that so many stores are still using to determine customer needs. What kind of a survey do you really have to use to sell a customer or present a tire and wheel road hazard with cosmetic or dent and ding protection, or for that matter, guaranteed asset protection or GAP, or appearance protection, or for that matter, the vehicle service agreement? Stop the phony surveys. They're not sincere. They don't come across as sincere, and the customer probably knows that they're not sincere. They're a phony survey to get to the end or to sell me something. Again, what was that question? Is this gentleman trying to help me, or are they just trying to sell me something? Well, number 3, stop the interrogations. You know, it's great to commit ourselves to dialogue, but we want that dialogue to be controlled and not come across like we're doing a root canal with the customer. Stop the interrogations. That for many customers, it comes across as combative conversation. And folks, I would say to you, when we hit that combative conversation level, we're done. We're done, because from a CSI and sales standpoint, it's not going to happen when that interrogation becomes an interrogation from just an interaction. But the combative conversation, we're done from a CSI and product standpoint. And then stop the magic menu wait. Right, 4-way stop. Stop the fake chit chat. Stop the phony surveys. Stop the magic menu wait. Again, bring the customer in as soon as you can and work that menu with the customer. And following page 16 on the NADA program, Model Leadership Policy for Voluntary Protection Products, affords you a good opportunity of conducting and putting together your game plan for your F&I technique and for your F&I presentations as well. So the F&I four-way stop. Finally, Michael, the next page, sir. Okay, next page. Our focus on is to commit to and assess our profit opportunity as it relates to 2 things. And we've seen this before, and you've seen it in our presentations. Number 1, commit yourself to a mission statement. The mission statement that we recommend, that really, again, I've said it before, and I've worked with a number of you in developing something like this in dealerships. This is actually from a large dealer group in Portland, Oregon, that they put together a number of years ago. But think about this. Every customer knows what they're getting. They agree to buy it. They know why they need it, and they feel good about it when they leave our dealership. It's pretty good. So if that's happening, a lot of good things, I would say, are happening within your organization. That is, every customer knows what they're getting. They agree to buy it. They know why they need it, and they feel good about it when they leave the dealership. Then, of course, our AGWS training value statement. Very simply, we endorse and teach the industry standard. industry standard and best practices that are recommended by NADA, by AFIP, and by our internal American Guardian Warranty Services Seller Code of Conduct for retail sales, which serves as a guide to the proper sales practices for all retail sellers of our products, of our products and services. So that's one of you calling me now with respect to the training value statement. That's great timing. So again, training value statement. We endorse and teach the industry standard and best practices that are recommended by NADA, AFIP, and our American Guardian group of companies Seller Code of Conduct for retail sales, which serves as a guide to the proper sales practices for all retail sellers of our products. With that, next slide, Michael. Let me yield back to Michael Day to chat with you about our remaining webinar schedule, other updates, once again, how to get the information from previous workshops, previous webinars, and as always, you know how to reach me. We can set up either a training by phone with respect to the webinars or doing something virtually, or preferably now if we can, in dealership training as it relates to compliance and ethics and F&I sales presentations. With that, you'll back to Michael. Mr. Day, Mike, go ahead, sir.
All right, thanks, Bob, for the great information as always. Take a look at these next couple dates to catch the next webinar series, and then make sure to go and like us on Facebook and follow for more information. Thanks, Bob. Great job today.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great wrap up to this month, and as we get into the last quarter of 2021. Thank you all.